Morning. We'll call the meeting to order.
Montana State come back vegan.
We have a packed agenda today. We have
That's-
some longer items in there, so I will ask anybody doing presentations to move quickly through them. We're gonna rearrange the agenda a little bit. We've got people that have some hard stops that we're gonna have to deal with. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 28th meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there a motion to approve the vouchers totaling $653,808.13?
Motion. Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Individual vouchers A through F.
Motion. Second.
Are there any of the items that require further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I would move that item 4, we defer that to our January meeting.
all right.
Of another month of information, then it'd be easier to look at that.
Okay. Would you like to also change item 7 to right behind item 5 at this point?
Sure.
We have a motion to move the budget review to January.
Second.
Also, make sure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Item number 5 is communication from Spectrum Aeromet. Wants to do some improvements.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
He's got your present, someone up here.
Step.
Just kind of stand close.
Right there at the start. There we go.
Right here? Right here?
You got it. Stare into the camera.
Morning, everyone. Really excited to take a few minutes and chat with you today. For the folks I've not had a chance to meet, my name is Chase McCown. I'm the president of Spectrum Aeromet over in the old terminal building and in Hangar 9. Been talking with Sean a little bit about some vision for the company, and we are very excited to look for opportunities to expand. We feel like we're in a great place as a aviation service provider and manufacturer. Being on the airport is a huge value for us. Our partnership with Fargo Jet Center is just all goodness. 2023 is the biggest year from a revenue standpoint in the history of our company, and we expect the next several years to be great as well. We like where we are, but our footprint, we need to grow it. And so we went out through a selective process. We talked to 3 different GCs in the area and have selected Olaf Anderson for a proposal that we wanted to bring to you all today. There are 3 pieces in the project that are in the package. The first one would be expanding our engineering department. We think that's critical to our growth and important to our partnership here in the Fargo area. We've had some really good dialogue with NDSU about expanding the intern program. And by moving out into the open space in the terminal area, we would bring in 5 new engineering positions and an open area collaborative conference room that we think would be great for us. The other 2 pieces that we'd like to do is in the hangar. We've got about 15 folks over there right now. We think that will grow, and we've only got 1 restaurant. Sure. Oh. Thank you for that. I thought it was going in the background. There we go. Thank you for that. So 3 projects are in play, as I mentioned. Expanding our engineering section into the open east terminal area, 2nd bathroom in the hangar, and then above that 2nd bathroom, we'd like to add some storage space with a mezzanine. Slide, please. I think most folks are familiar. This is the doors on the right are entrance into the old terminal. Spectrum Aeromet runs along that back wall and then wraps around to the top of the slide with our engineering department. That green area is the expansion. You can see the The entry door there would be into our company at that point. We'd have cube space along the side and the open conference room to the left. Slide please. This is over in Hangar 9, just to the north. The stairs there are the main entryway into the hangar. To the left, those open rooms are our break area and office space. We have one bathroom that is currently there, the one on the left, and we would add the one that is on the right. Slide, please. And then just above that would be a storage area, mezzanine, almost 700 square feet. It would really allow us, the other open space you see up to the top there is the mezzanine on the other side of the hangar that we would be able to use more as a production facility as opposed to just storage. So if we go down this path, slide please, we believe this really provides us the footprint we need to grow. Olaf Anderson's ready to move into this after the start of the new year. The rent would be adjusted for the square foot addition into the terminal at the same rate that's currently there. We would love to go into a lease extension, do 5 years with 5 one-year options after that, and then stay with the current escalator clause that is in our lease. As we work this long-term deal, we will depreciate as we move forward, and in conversation with Sean, we'd like to work with the contracts and legal team here at the airport, where if and when we grow so much that the footprint doesn't work in the future, that there would be an opportunity within the legal agreement to cover any depreciation costs that are not written down.
So, sure. We appreciate your growth here and what you're doing. What are we looking for from our board right now? We need a motion to approve this, or are we just receiving the communication?
Yes, sir. So here now, a quick walkthrough. Looking for board approval to do that, and then I'll work with the team here from the lease standpoint to get all that packaged up.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. One question, what would this look like with the recovery of the non-depreciated portion, if you like?
I think we need to work through that.
Sure, okay, you'll be bringing that back.
Yeah, within.
Okay, great.
We did that like one of the chemicals around. Telesis that moved out, so tenant improvement and then they before the end of depreciation.
Yeah, we just want to take that up. So that we don't have a problem. I have a motion and second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're moving to item 7. Thank you, I'm sorry. In a hurry today. Mr. Burke, would you like to run through the study with Hyde Bailey and SP Plus on the parking structure?
Yeah, absolutely. So I, just to give a little background, this is something we've been working on for about 6 months, and appreciate everyone's help on the board. Sean, your effort, John, Rick, everyone, but it's really taking SP Plus and their numbers and looking at those, taking the hard cost of the project and what those are going to be. And I think actually that's part of the presentation this morning under this number 7 is talking about those costs. Is that correct from McGough?
Correct.
What's that?
Yeah.
So actually, it might be best if we had McGough or Terry or whomever just.
Presentation on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. We're excited about the presentation we got for you this morning. Now, understand this is schematic design, so we have a number of things to go, but at the same token, we feel some of the things that really will, that help McGough and us really nail down pricing for some of the engineering things that we did, and maybe with a little bit of an above board with regard to that from the standpoint of getting more information. So next slide. So it's all, we've been seeing this before. This is, you know, where it is. It's basically takes up the short-term parking area. Next slide. So these are the things that I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. So our parking, we got 977 parking stalls. 955 of them are standard, 22 are handicap. We have 15 VE charging stations, and that's a kind of a combination of slow and fast charging stations. There's quite a bit of difference in cost, and Walker Parking helped us with kind of estimating what typically you'd see there. Some of those would be outside, probably on the south side of the ramp for long term, and then some would be on the inside. The parking ramp, so again, the pricing that you're gonna hear today is we have wayfinding signage for the parking, we have gates, we have counting systems, we even right now have a license plate reader in the system, and security cameras. Probably, I think we're really covered on all that in terms of just wanted to make sure that when we gave you a number, it was kind of all in. So the future, we made sure that we can do and you'll see this in the renderings, that we can do a future drive lane. We're doing some future proofing so we could put solar on top of the roof, which would really be easy to do. And then a campus-wide signage plan Walker Parking has developed for the site. Those are all things that are not included in this price that we're talking about today. The vertical circulation, so the lobby of the, say, for instance, the lobby of the actual garage itself is finished. It'll be finished to very much the same finish that the airport would be, kind of hard tile surfaces, that kind of thing. And then we also have a backup generator included in this price. So, so that backs up the parking ramp all on its own. Next slide. So the plans necessarily hasn't changed a lot. This is some of the stuff you've seen before. What we've been doing is just trying to really nail down on how to build it and what to build it on. Next slide. Again, we have that, the ramp, basically have 4 flat parking surfaces, and we have a ramp on the south side that takes you up and you wind around as it goes up. When you come into a floor, you'll see a sign that says there's X amount of stalls available, or it's full, and then you'll go to the next floor. From a color perspective, don't get excited. Right now, we're kind of dealing with, because we have multiple precasters bidding on this project. We're really looking at kind of darks and lights of color. So these aren't the color of the panels, because all the precasters have kind of different panel selections to choose from. So once we nail that down, we would choose that. We'd actually have samples here for you, and we would update the rendering. So this is a shot. So from the southeast, looking at the ramp, so you can see where that car is coming out of the ramp.
Will there be a skin on?
Huh?
Will there be a skin coating?
No, there won't.
We
couldn't. It will be decorative concrete though, not just gray concrete. So it'll be sandblasted, acid etched, colored. So yeah, so it'll I know.
Okay.
We tried to look at the scrims that they're doing today, and they're just astronomically expensive. Just couldn't even come close to doing it. So this is what you see is looking from east to west. Terminal on the right. Parking ramp. You can kind of see some of those dark areas in the corners where that staircase is, and a big, huge window in the staircase. We were looking at the possibility of using some of the dry design panels that Mead and Hunt are using on the airport. We have a deduct if we wanted to go to some decorative precast, which could be even a polished precast that looks almost like marble. And that would actually be a deduct. But in any case, we're just trying to show you the kind of the composition of what this airport or this garage is looking like. Same thing, so we have, the two staircases on both sides. This is westy looking east. And then from the southwest. So you see that we're sloping the roof to the center. This thing has it just happened to pencil from the standpoint of having precast roof instead of a steel roof because of a lot of issues. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was cheaper, which probably, honest with you, nobody thought it would be. It isn't something we can park on, obviously. We're getting a little help here with regards to the one runway, and also we would have to increase the cost of the garage considerably because we would need to do some more add some footings and foundation work that to accommodate to have cars up there. So right now, it just because it worked financially, it also works from a construction perspective really, really well. We have a real light roof on that, so we have an EPDM roof on it, so it's not, it's not going to leak. The last thing we were thinking is, with all the stuff in the air that we have today and the water coming down and all of a sudden having a leak on somebody's, $100,000 pickup, and takes the finish off. The last thing we need is that. So, next slide. And then this is just an isometric of our staircase design and stuff that we're looking at. Next slide. This is just a real preliminary look at some of the signage that Walker did for us in terms of we have designs for gates to go over to all the temporary parking lots, or they're not temporary parking lots, the economy parking lots, those kind of things. We did not, they actually have a price for those. We did not include those in this, and we can talk about those later, but we were just trying to come up with a comprehensive signage program for the whole airport, as well as the garage. Next one. I'll let Oliver from McGovern take it from here.
Morning. Oliver Fennan with managing the pre-construction effort for us on the ramp. So Terry just walked through with you guys the design of what this thing is going to look like, and then over the last 4 weeks we've been trying to figure out what it's going to cost. So what we've done is we go through and we count as many square feet of things and doors and hinges and everything we can count to go out to the market. We get pricing from the trade partners that will probably be working on this, so we have kind of a balanced approach when it comes to trying to understand the overall cost of this. So I think to start with, Terry went over pretty well what the scope of the project is, and I just want to make sure it's clear the numbers that we're going to go through just a minute, what isn't included in there. So some of those things that won't be included in numbers that we're going to walk through in just a minute are the drop-off lane, the extension of adding in the fifth lane, ventilated snow screening on the openings of the precast, campus-wide parking control equipment. Like Terry mentioned, we've got what's needed for the parking ramp itself. There is a master plan, all sorts of signage and parking equipment around campus. The stuff outside of the parking ramp isn't included in the estimate. Temporary parking lot, which we will talk about towards the end, and then a monument sign on 19th. So just to kind of set some expectations of when I'm going through this, what isn't included in the cost. So if you want to scroll down. Okay, so we've we've broken the estimate into two major components. The first one being the parking ramp, and the second being the skyway. Inside of those, we've separated the costs into the hard costs, which McGough will be responsible for. Those are the precast and the earth moving and the piling and all the things that you'll see at the end of the day. And then the soft costs, which would be the design fees, the testing, legal fees, owner contingency, those type of things. So take your hard costs and your soft costs and bring those together, and you get the overall project cost. So for the parking ramp, we've got estimated cost at just under 40 million, 39,988. And what I want to share with this group is so you understand that there are contingencies built into those numbers at this time because the design is not complete. They need time to go through and refine it. So we'll carry a contingency in our estimate to kind of catch all those little things that get added and refined throughout the design process. It's important to have that in there though. Right now we're carrying a 5% design contingency, and so that we anticipate is that will get us all the way to the construction documents that we can actually put out for bid and occupancy. So whatever, that's the contingency that we have pulled right now, whatever isn't used in that just stays with the ownership. The other thing is probably everyone's aware of is the price escalation. We can only get pricing in today's dollars, but we have to, we know it's going to be at least months before we can lock in pricing, so we're carrying an escalation allowance in this estimate too, just knowing that construction materials and labor continue to go up, so we want to make sure we're at least anticipating some of that. There again, what doesn't get used stays with the ownership. So going through those, that breakdown, that's what gets the hard cost to just under 40 million. The soft costs are broken into the known design fees, FF&E, et cetera, about 2.5 million for the garage, and then there's a 2% owner contingency that's we always recommend that the owner carries a contingency throughout the construction process. In the case that we run into absolute unknowns, that there's a budget there to cover some of those type of things. So 2% on a project like this seems reasonable. If we were working on renovation, we'd maybe recommend a slightly higher one because there's just a lot of unknowns that you get into. So all totaled up, hard costs and soft costs, we're at $43,309,000 for the parking ramp. Getting down into the Skyway, with the Skyway now, the design is not nearly as advanced as the parking ramp is, so we have to look at things from a higher level, more or less utilizing, going back to historical data and looking at the cost per square foot for other similar Skyways that we've done. So we figure out the more or less the square footage of that Skyway, bringing it all the way from the ramp through your facade here and tying it into the stairs at the top of the stairs. Working those costs out, it's about just under 3,942,000. Similarly, you'll have soft costs associated with the Skyway. So Darren, I guess you good. Totaling those two up, the overall project cost for the Skyway is $4,468,000. So you want to take the combined total of the ramp and the Skyway. We are sitting at $47,726,000 total project cost. So if we were cut loose to proceed today, that's where we believe the cost of the project would come So getting down into some of the things that I talked about earlier that weren't included in the estimated numbers above. We've got a breakdown of some of the pricing of what we're calling the alternates that could be added to the project, that perhaps just for, realizing that we could be pushing the budget here, these are items that can be added if there's funding available for them. Not necessary to open the facility, but certainly would be nice to have to. So starting at the top, like Terry had mentioned, we're looking at a number of options with the facade. There's about $500,000 in savings if we went from a decorative surface applied metal panel to some type of polish and finish on precast. That's an opportunity to reduce the cost of the project by about $500,000. The fifth drop-off lane at the terminal, that's $821,000 to add that. The ventilated screening in the openings of the precast, if you recall, looking at the renderings of the ramp, you'll have kind of horizontal chunks of precast at the floor line, and then maybe a 6 to 8 foot opening in between those big chunks there. What this alternate number 3 would do is provide a perforated screening that allows air to flow into the building, keeps the snow out. Is the idea there. It's a pretty good sticker price on that one though, just due to a lot of quantity requires buildup of a steel structure to mount it on, so it's a relatively involved scope of work there at $2.9 million. And then the last item on the list was thinking through the project and taking out the short-term parking stalls, right? There will be a desire to at least temporarily replace those. On the south side of the ticket booth, we think there's adequate space to put in some type of temporary parking. And this is, we're thinking temporary, so this is a gravel lot, more or less, that provides you similar square footage of parking for the parking that is displaced during the construction of the ramp. So what this would look like is we go out and strips on the topsoil off, put a layer filter fabric down, 12 inches of class 5, do some minimal work throughout the construction of the ramp to keep it up, right? It's not asphalt, so it's probably a touch up. Then when the ramp opens up, you take all that class 5 back out, filter fabric back out, and kind of restore it back to the farm field that's there. So that we anticipate would be in the $520,000 range. So I should point out, looking at this morning, I realized that the costs up here for the alternates are all hard construction costs. So there will be some soft costs associated with these. I think based on where the rest of the project is, it's probably that 8 to 9% ballpark, which aren't, though that just is not included in these figures.
Thank you.
Oliver, on alternate number 2, it says provide 5th lane, a drop-off lane at terminal, and in the rendering, it looked like there were 6 lanes in that rendering. There's 5 with the berm. Okay, so that's,
what we have today.
so the rendering is not consistent with the $47 million.
Yeah, why don't we,
We put the lane in the rendering.
let's pick up the financial part of this, and then if we have questions, we
Okay.
blend them all together.
All right, well, I'm Kristen, I'm with Ed Bailey, and we were engaged to work on behalf of the airport authority with SB Plus and understanding what kind of revenue we think that the new parking ramp could generate. So that is what we are gonna be going over today. If you guys wanna start on the next slide. Yeah, one more. So the first piece that we wanna talk about is how were these calculations made? And the information was determined by SB Plus, the parking management company. And they used historic detail from 2023 to understand the daily occupied spaces, so that way we could assign a revenue to those spaces. So this is just a snapshot of what that information puts out with their system. And they went in and used this information to understand where people were parking and for how long. Next slide. And so that information was through September 2023, which then they annualized to a full year using historic data. So you can see that January through September, actual daily occupied spaces was from that transaction detail. For October and November, it was determined to mirror the average of August and September, so saying October and November trend similar to August and September. And then December averages January and February 2023, that's where we kind of see that shift in the numbers coming in. So you can see here, economy 1 and 2 are combined in one grouping here, but the spaces are really split out. The daily occupied spaces are split out between short-term service, long-term service, and economy. And that means that over this 1 year time period, we would expect to have 532,000 daily occupied spaces. So that represents a day of utilizing that space. So what does that mean in terms of numbers? Well, you can see here, those are the current daily rates that were approved on 11/28/23. So what we're trying to do is say, if we have the same number of spaces with the new rates, what can we expect for revenue in 2024? So for short-term service, that's gonna be about $22 a day. We have 72,000 spaces, so $1.6 million. Long-term service is now $12, 373,000 spaces, so that's really the bulk of the revenue, 4.5 million. Economy is at $9, about 87,000 spaces, so just under 800,000. And that MEG CABI revenue, that is those reservations, meet and greet, it's separately identified at about $40,000 a month based on historic data, but because it's based on the dynamic pricing, we couldn't include it with the prior transaction analysis. So what this represents here, $7.3 million, that's what we would expect if we had the same number of transactions occur in 2024 based on this data. So just replicating what happened in 2023 and pushing it into 2024 with the updated rates. So then the question is, what does it look like if we added this parking ramp? And really what the goal is to say, let's not even look at additional transactions, people who now want to park because there is the ramp option, but let's just say we're shifting where people are parking. And how we did that is we kept economy the same. We said economy parkers are going to continue to park in the economy spaces. And instead, the difference in those spaces that were instead before split between short-term and long-term service are now going to be split between long-term service and the parking ramp. For this analysis, we assumed 65% of those spaces with 65% occupancy in the ramp. So what that means is that there's nearly an even breakout of the daily occupied spaces. So half of them are in that $12 a day space, the other half are in the $25 a day. The MEG and CABI revenue stays the same, and what we see is that revenue number jumps to about $9.6 million. And that's because people are parking in a more expensive space. Slide. Wow, that's so small. I'm so sorry. Didn't see that coming. The difference here is about $2.3 million. So the calculation of the incremental revenue from the addition of the parking lot, $2.3 million. But taking 2023 numbers, pushing them into 2024 would have been the 7.3. The difference between what we'd expect with the ramp in place, same number of daily occupied spaces, is just under $2.3 million.
Sherman, I think this is kind of the crux of what we've spent months and months trying to get to. And I think the 7.3 current annual parking, right now we're about 6.3, something like that. So we put the assumptions of those increases that we put in. And so, that 7.3 it's not what we're receiving right now, but if we didn't do the ramp, that's what we think we'd receive. So, the whole goal from my perspective is, can we do something here that generates revenue for the airport authority long term? And if we built this, paid for it, it would generate almost $10 million a year in parking revenue to support the airport authority and what we have going forward. So this is really this is kind of, from my perspective, what we kind of need to make a decision on. The next slide, I said, well, what if we financed it? And so and it has nothing to do with a decision that we need to make right now, but the idea is, well, I think our bond counsel said you could probably get 5.25, bond on a 20-year AM. And so kind of this next, we're just throwing that out there saying, what does this look like? And I think part of this, if we're going to the city, for the Bank of North Dakota, again, how this whole thing comes together, they're gonna need to guarantee what we borrow from the Bank of North Dakota, whether it's for the terminal, the ramp, or however we do it. So they need to know that these numbers kind of work. And so that's kind of what this process has been. So we can keep going, but I just wanna make that clear.
Yep, and so the next calculation is just gonna be exactly what Rick said, if you move one more slide, which is the idea of what does this look like if we financed about half of it? So on the top left is funding sources. So when we think about investment, we think about sources, where's the money coming from, and uses, what is it going towards? So the 43.3 represents the ramp construction that was just presented. And in this calculation, we have assumed about 20 million paid in cash, the difference being paid utilizing debt. And that debt term is going to be, I think it's actually 20 years. I can check my notes, but I think that's a typo right there. I believe it's 20 years. 5.25% interest with an annual payment of about $1.8 million. So what does this mean? And on the top right, that's what we're focusing on with these charts. So we know we have a net change in revenue from the ramp of about $2.3 million. If our annual principal plus interest payments is going to be 1.8, that means that we have just under $500,000 left in new dollars that are being generated. If we assume that there's some additional cost to operate a ramp as compared to what we have right now, you can see that the net cash flows still is in the positive. And this is just focusing on the net change in revenue, right? And so it's if something were to happen and it would go further, we still have those other dollars that are currently just going to the airport authority. This is just saying if we only look at the net change in revenue less the debt payments under these terms.
And I think the important thing is if you look on the left side, we're paying off $720,000 of principal every year. And so if you were looking at this from an investment, I would take the $719,000, the $188, and say we're investing $20 million. What's our return there? And it's close to 5%. It's a little under 5%. The other way of looking at this, if we're borrowing at 5.25, I mean that's probably about what we're hitting on our money markets and that. So, again, from the perspective, is this a viable project and is it something with cash flow? I mean, thank you for what you've done. I think it's pretty clear.
The other critical thing there is if we look at if you change your amortization, we've got 40 million committed from the Bank of North Dakota. We have 8 million anticipated to finance terminal expansion. Leaves 32 million available. If we move this amount of finance and use Bank of North Dakota terms, your payment drops to $1 million. Your net cash flow picks up another 800,000, so it's $1 million. So your 700,000 on $1 million becomes a much more, a much higher return. And the other thing is new dollars from the 9.6 is we're comparing this as if the new rates were in effect. That will be new dollars and that will be available, as Rick said, to help with the financing and the costs of the expansion and remodel.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So if you compare your new dollars in from those rate increases, it would appear to be a larger change in revenue as compared to what you had historically.
So we've got room in here. Is the most important takeaway from this.
Mr. Chair, has there been any comments from IAD about the source and use of funds that take away from the terminal dollars?
No, we haven't really focused on that at this point, just because the financing right now, it seems like it's still an unknown of what's gonna play into where, so that hasn't been focused at this point. We've just been identifying, does it make sense from our perspective, the information SB Plus put together in terms of the expected revenue change.
Do you have, and Mr. Chair, do you have a break-even number for cash input for financing? I mean, there's a $20 million cash infusion by the airport into this.
Yep,
Do you have a break-even number, whether 20 million, 5 million, 7, did you do that?
we have not, but I think that's something that we could do if we're interested in seeing that.
Mr. Engen, what this is doing is an incremental analysis at this point. It says everything we've approved prior to this with the expansion and remodel is the same. This is paying for itself in incremental revenue from this project.
And I
So as long as this is positive, it's not gonna make a difference to the other project.
Well, but source and
They'll
use,
actually-
source and use of funds, Mr. Chair, one of the questions I have is the source and use of funds for the terminal expansion included the $40 million from
No,
the
it did
Bank of
not.
North Dakota.
No, it did not. And the
Where-
presentation that we gave to the FAA showed 8 million of debt service for the terminal expansion rate, not 40.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, the other issue that we need to do, if we say, yes, we want to move forward with this, I think we should, we need to get the sources and uses done for the whole project.
Yep.
And it's been, we went to DC, seems like a month ago, but a week or so ago, and this project's gonna come in pieces at us, and it's gonna be something that we really, as a board, need to get our arms around. And then I think we wanna use the best, cheapest money wherever we can, however we need to do it. But, so I don't think we're making a decision today on how we're gonna finance it, what we're gonna finance, or how we're gonna use our cash. I think we have to look at the overall terminal project and what the FAA is gonna do to make that decision. Again, this financing here are just saying, hey, if we went out and had third-party bond do this is about what they're saying they would do. It's not obligating any of the other money or other than 20 million cash.
Any other questions, discussion? Any questions?
Are we looking for a motion to move forward?
Yeah, I guess, what I would like to do at this point is just move that we go ahead and construct the parking ramp. I think, for a lot of reasons, but it's really indoor parking for people. So I'm really excited about this. So I would move that we move forward with the parking ramp, or we approve construction of the parking ramp.
I second.
We have a motion and second to construct the parking ramp as described here, and all the information, but approximately 977 stalls parking ramp. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm concerned about where that $20 million is coming from for this, and that's a source and use of funds question that we haven't discussed. We will have multiple projects with close to $180 million.
Mr. Chairman, I'd stop you right there. Speak to the motion.
I am,
is
sir.
the approval.
And I'm giving,
Excuse me. Mr. Berg said that was an example given. You're taking it as, now you want to define it and say, how are we gonna do that? This will be worked out as we go forward, if I understand your motion correctly, Mr. Berg.
so I want to see a parking ramp, but I don't want to infringe on the dollars set aside or needed for this facility to expand.
And
That's my
up for
concern.
discussion. Any other discussion?
Just a question about the screening for the snow. Have you compared what the snow removal management costs would be versus when you have screening? I'm just curious how much the cost would be to managing the snow getting into the facility, and if that would cash flow at all through time?
I think it's something that could certainly be discussed then.
We'd be looking at that.
The Skyway elevated walkway is not part of the commercial.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Chairman, we've got a lot of questions on the construction. I appreciate how it's presented today. I think, looking at that, they have 1.7 million in contingencies on the one part, 800,000 contingency on the other. I mean, this is, I disagree with, I think we're gonna see lower numbers depending on how we bid this going through. So I'm not sure if we'll continue to see higher numbers. The other thing is, this is not a complicated project. I mean, it's concrete tilt up parking garage. So I don't think we'll see, I mean, I think the numbers that were presented are pretty solid numbers. So I think getting into that a little bit more, if we're gonna increase or do different changes, I think that's, this motion does not say that's exactly what we have to do. I think it's still open to tweak it and figure out what's best, and, that makes sense? Yeah.
Is Skyway part of your motion?
Excuse me?
Is the elevated walkway Skyway part of your motion?
Yeah, I mean, we want,
Everything that we showed them. And that again may.
I mean, that's an
may move
issue.
around if that becomes.
I mean, the Skyway, we're hoping for participation with the terminal, so whether that's part of the terminal project or the parking, we need to be as smart as we can about that, but,
Okay. Other discussions, questions, anybody? All right.
Could I have Joan read back what the specifics are of the motion?
Mr. Bird moved to approve moving ahead with the construction of the parking lot.
is that clear enough?
Authorize the construction of the
Parking ramp and Skyway.
Skyway, as presented here.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Berg a question?
Certainly.
Is this based on just let's build it, we need to build it, or with financing contingencies that were presented, just we do need to build it, which I agree we do.
Yeah, I think we need to build it. I mean, I think what we need to do from a financing standpoint is A, we've got cash, we could just pay for the whole thing cash. We wanted to. If we wanna split it up somehow, we can do that. We know we've got 2.5% money from the Bank of North Dakota. So, I mean, that would almost cover it without any cash. So I think those are decisions that we need to make. But my point is, thing makes money, thing cash flows, I think we should do it.
This becomes an authorized project. All right. Call the roll, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Bird.
Aye.
Capita.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Oscar.
Aye. Motion's carried. All right, thank you.
Now let's get them to lower their price. What happened to the 33 million? I tease them.
We don't have like 16-foot wide parking spaces.
But we do have.
6.5, so you can't get up the road.
Oliver, is the Skyway a one-piece deal or
Well,
you just move it
we
in
just
one
got
day?
it a couple days ago.
It's constructed on site.
That's fine.
All right.
That's
I'm
why
sorry.
they're in Sioux Falls and that's what they're planning to.
I don't like being outside.
Yeah, being
The 26.
Just checking.
All right, item number 6, as we can hopscotch around this whole agenda, will be the passenger terminal update.
I'm fine with the motion.
Sean, did you that? Sean did all that last week. Sean.
Good morning, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. So, today, we're just gonna be, going through a number of items, kind of presentation to show. Aaron, do you have that pulled up?
No. You want to share or do you want me to do it?
Oh. Yeah, if you have it, if you could pull it up, I appreciate it. Great, thank you. So today we have interiors update, further information. You can go to the next slide. We have Gina Malika, who you guys should be fairly familiar with. She's our senior interior designer. Mara Peterson, who I think she's been making cameos throughout the project. She's our accessibility consultant, who's been leading the charge at communicating with local groups like the Freedom Resource Center and Be More Colorful and local groups like that. And then we have Raleigh Idol, who is our wayfinding designer. We're going to be going through, just give you a snapshot of our direction for interior signage wayfinding, provide an update on our discussions with Be More Colorful. We just have a quick snapshot of the door hardware and wanted to get some feedback on that. Updates on the restroom mural renderings that we have. Updates on we have some renderings on the concession area. Also the art display cases that we've been working with Artworks on coordinating. And then we have an update on the interactive wall rendering in the play area. So I know it looks like a lot, but we'll be going through it quick, and feel free to interject as you have any questions. So first we'll start off with Raleigh introducing the signage.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So today we'll just go to the next slide. The goal here is probably just go through this in about 5 minutes, just kind of overview. What we're looking at is how do we get people through the terminal in a very clear and precise way. The goal is not to oversign the facility, but where people need to find direction, they find what they need at the easiest point, so it's very evident. Some of the main things that we'll see is going to be scale and how different things work throughout and the overall family of the signage. This first slide, as you enter the front doors of the building, you'll come across a pylon sign that will have arrivals and departures. We'll have some overall information directing people to ticketing, baggage, ground transportation. And then this design will also lead up to the upper levels where you'll actually see, and I call these graphic pylons, which will be located within the various gate areas. And we'll have large backlit images that relate to the communities and other elements that the Fargo region or the state of North Dakota have to offer travelers. What you see on the bottom level is kind of the various of scale. So when you have that 2-level opening in the new elevator, we have the large elevator letters that will be internally lit. And then below that, once again, we'll have some additional messaging along with icons that lead people up to the 2nd level for TSA and for all gates. The little elevator to the left, that is basically the back side of that primary elevator once you're on that 2nd level. So that will also lead people down, but you'll see there that scaling of letters when you have a larger space. We go to the next page. This, once again, just kind of shows a little bit of how we do the studies for the various leveling of scale. We're looking at different studies of how we handle the gift shop, how we handle information, how we kind of work those 2 different floors, and how the signage will wrap that column or the elevator core. One of the big things here is just really trying to tie in with the architecture, being a consistent material that works with interiors, and also having a standardized a font base. We go to the next. This shows our overhead signage, which would also be backlit, so internally lit. These will be very strong with icons that will help take people to the proper destinations. The gray that you see here would actually be the wood that ties in with some of the other elements for interiors. The dark color would be the contrast, so that we have high contrast, which is very important. If we go to the next slide, this just kind of shows in that scaling of how these overhead signs will look, so that we have the proper scaling of text. We also have a kind of a tipping of the hat when you look at that lower left image of just even the ticketing window when you're pulling up to the actual building. So there is architectural influence to this. Next slide. This shows kind of those graphic pylons, the gate signage. This is really kind of your corridor that leads you down from gates 5 down to 9. We have the larger gate numbers on the left. We have restroom signs, flag signs that are a little bit smaller to the right. And then we have the overhead directional signage. Next slide. This once again is just kind of showing some of those little details. We use the icons along with words. They'll actually be backlit once again. Then below you'll see like the gate numbers, very clean against the wood background, and then the overall scale. Next slide. This shows for some of those primary destinations, like the SARS room for service animal relief, sensory room, wellness, mothering room, play area, and then the restrooms. So just to even bring a little bit more impact so that people from a distance can see where those destinations are, and then how they work with the ADA Braille sign that is to the next to them. Next slide. This really just shows the overall family. So the larger signs for restrooms, gates, this has the raised text, has the raised icons, raised Braille. Then that works its way down to some of the primary destination rooms, and then the smaller signs going all the way down to back of house, where we're really don't need to have such large signs, save some money where we can. The fabrication of these are very straightforward. Next slide. This shows the stairwells, and then interior stairwells. We handle all the things that go to your exit levels and exiting to exterior, keeping everything once again same fonts, colors, everything consistent. Next slide. This is kind of our fire and our AED for the defibrillators. These signs are a little bit different because we want to have that contrast so that people can see them from a distance. They're a little bit thicker sign, but they're a clean mount sign, so you don't see exposed screws or hardware. Very fitting for the space. And then for exterior, for outside in the secure areas, recommending more of a vinyl applied to the doors because of the climate and weather conditions. And then the final slide is just, once again, kind of an overall catch-all for different notifications, be it, smoking area, distances. With this one, we have showing 25 feet, but up in that area is a 20 feet distance from a building for possible smoking. But once again, just keeping everything consistent, font, style, clean, not too much of a distraction. So that's what I have for my signage, if there's any questions.
Did you mention the exterior signage? So as you come up to the signage, then we'd have the same signage outside as inside?
We would be kind of matching what we need to. I did not show like the FAR letters, so we're detailing that. At this time, we're kind of looking at what are some of the various messaging. A lot of this will kind of tie in with this discussion this morning with the parking ramp. If that moves forward, we would tie into similar elements of the exterior and interior so that we're are consistent.
So like door numbers and airlines, that type of thing?
Correct. Those are things that once we kind of go through this final kind of phrasing, we can fine tune. What I've noticed with past projects is there's always a little bit of that fine tuning after the project starts just to make sure that we are consistent, and we're able to really cover a lot of that in the shop drawing phase.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on signage?
Some airports have like a something that would say like Hector Airport or or welcome to Fargo or something like that in a more decorative type of lettering or something affixed to, rock or whatever. Is there anything like that?
I think there are those possibilities. I think for today was more so just kind of showing that overall, the family. I think there's a lot of that we could do with those graphic panels. We do have the walls that are on the elevator core, as you're reaching the second level. I think with the FAR letters out front, I think that'll be a very bold statement. So there are those possibilities, and a lot of time I find that being kind of that after we go through the QRC that's coming up here, we can kind of locate what that might need for additional, more of a branding, more of a marketing kind of element.
Okay, thank you.
And
Brendan?
And yeah, that's a good point, because you'll see in some renderings here that will spark that conversation, like in the meet and greet areas and such, because we put some possibilities for signage there. So thanks.
Brandon, for those of us that are spatially challenged, can we have a floor plan so we can kind of place these across the whole footprint of what we're looking at?
Absolutely. In fact, I think Raleigh, you have floor plans showing the locations of these. They're kind of like tagged to what sites are going where, right? So we could share that with you if that would work.
Yeah, it's as
that
we
might
go.
be a little bit hard for today.
No, that's fine
yeah,
for today.
Send it after.
As we go forward, we've got a lot of pieces to this, and just where everything is placed. I mean, dog relief area. I don't know if that's next to Sean's office or where that might be, but just helping us kind of look at this from an overall perspective. I appreciate the individual pieces.
And you bet. And when we do the final signage package, we'll have an elevation of every sign that's going to be. So it's not just going to be a message schedule that you just see a list of words. We'll have every sign, what it looks like, so you can see how tight the kerning is, the contrast of colors. And my signage location plans, I have that located for each floor for the specific sign types and overall scaling. So it's very detailed when we get to that level.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help us have an overall vision of what this looks like, and kind of imagine yourself coming through and using the wayfinding signs and everything else. But also as we look at the various layouts of the different rooms and everything else. So that's just me. I have a spatial awareness problem. So if we could do that, get the floor plans available, that would be a help.
You bet. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll transition to Mara, who's going to give us an update on kind of our discussions with the Be More Colorful feedback we received from them. Mara?
Good morning. You can jump to the next slide, please. So building off of Raleigh's sign-based wayfinding, there are also wayfinding needs for travelers who are blind or low vision. During our meetings with the Freedom Resource Center, they suggested reaching out to Be More Colorful, which is a local Fargo company, to develop an app for wayfinding. Gina has had some conversations with Be More Colorful, and it was determined that that style of wayfinding app was not the best fit for their company. Although there might be some other opportunities down the line to work with them on other projects, such as a day in the life of a pilot, or sort of a representation of what happens to your baggage when you check it in for a flight. We did identify an alternative for wayfinding, which is an existing service app called Aira. It utilizes a traveler's smartphone camera and connects them with a trained agent who is able to guide them through the airport. So this allows for real-time information, including things like changes that will happen during construction, where routes might change from day to day as you go through the various phases of the project. And it can also account for things like flight delays or gate changes and get that information to the traveler in real time. This system is currently in use at a number of airports already, including destinations from Fargo like Denver and Minneapolis, as well as retailers like Target and Starbucks. So it is something that's familiar to the users who need this service. An additional advantage is that there's minimal setup or infrastructure that's needed for this. It's essentially just the airport paying the subscription fees for use when it's being used within the airport. And then setting up that geofence so it's only being used within the airport. So a pretty plug and play option that's available instead of needing to develop and update an app for wayfinding.
Thanks, Mara. And then next we wanted to talk about door hardware. We have the door hardware we've worked through with a door hardware consultant to make sure that we have the proper door locks and access throughout the facility. But now we're looking at the detail level of finish and appearance. So I think I'll hand it over to Gina to just kind of talk through these options, and we're just looking for maybe to get a consensus of what if there's anything that is absolutely not appealing to you or you don't like to speak now, and if there's something that does really appeal to you, please let us know. Gina?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon, and I apologize. I have lost my internet this morning. I looked outside my window and Xfinity's in a big hole in the street in front of my house, and so I'm on my phone. If I can just indicate the slides that we're talking about, that would be helpful. So as Brandon mentioned, throughout the terminal, we're considering a lever type door handle, and I would like your feedback on the 3 different options. The first option we've come up with is a combination of wood and brass, which would also highlight the wood finishes throughout the terminal. The second is a dark neoprene type handle with stainless steel, very contemporary. And the third is a textured stainless steel without a secondary element incorporated. Is there any of these that jump out at you that, or any of them that you don't like?
Could you help us with a durability and cost standpoint differential on any of these? Because these are some of the hidden costs that you can start going way over budget without even realizing. And so it would help, I think, if we had cost factors.
So the cost of the 3 options is the same. It's $300 a handle. The cost is the same with all 3 options. As far as durability, I would say.
So we're 300 a handle. What about the rest of the hinges, locks, all in? What is this?
That all in, we're probably looking at close to $450
per door.
Per door, yes, sir.
Okay, correct. And do we have other options there? I've been in buildings where we see door hardware at over $1,000 a door, and when they ever go back to remodeling, they can't find it, and it's tremendously expensive. What would be the base option that we would look at in this area?
The base option would be matching what is existing in the terminal. And that you're looking at around $80 a door handle. And that would be our base option. We could look at, in the terminal spaces, matching the existing and then maybe upgrading in the executive office on the 3rd floor. That could be an option as far as cost saving, if you wanted to consider that. Or we could just match the existing throughout.
What I'm trying to understand is as we start now wrestling down budgets going forward, we have cost estimates, and I don't want us to jump over our base cost estimates and start looking and picking options. We're headed down a slippery slope at that point, so it would really help me when we do that. What does the base package that was part of, the understanding what this bid would be, what was that versus what you're proposing? I don't wanna have a new facility with you reusing old parts and everything like that, but I just need to understand that we're talking potentially here additional costs, right?
No. We would coordinate this with McGough. You're correct, and the idea is to use this hardware in some of the more high-profile areas or the more impactful areas, and then it would be a question of in the offices or in the spaces that aren't like right in, directly impacted or in front of the passengers, you could use dial back to a more economical.
Again, Brandon, I just want us to understand that if the base cost is $80, we're looking at $400, $500 options, which is a 500% increase above base cost. What we're looking at here, and as we go through this process, I will continue to ask those questions. Again, not trying. I don't want a cheap, slap together plastic building, but I think we have to be careful. It's the might as wells that start adding up. And we've already seen, you've already been in front of us as we've done through the design process. We've already seen step up in costs. So I just would love to see baseline options along with, hey, these are really nice. But I want us all to understand, if we pick one of these, we're picking a $350 increase in cost per door.
Also, I don't think we've seen the full terminal look to be able to pick one. Like, what color are the doors that these would be going on?
So the colors of the doors are gonna be, the new doors are gonna be a wood, it's actually a laminate, covering, so it's gonna have a wood look.
Okay.
Did we leave that finish board, the finish board in the boardroom? The conference room?
It's been a while, since I've been there.
So
what we could do, we have to do a study of exploring the existing and pricing, and then the different options as far as if we just did the upgraded in the executive area and customer facing areas, as a comparison, if that would be helpful.
And I think that coupled with the fact of what McGough has budgeted for hardware as well, that's absolutely, that is our task and our responsibility to make sure that we continue to design and coordinate with what McGough has put together for this for the budget that we're holding to.
Mr. Chair? Brandon, I think one of the concerns that I have is that showing us choices is great, but without the financial impact or change to the original budget along with those choices, it's meaningless. And we can't really make decisions just based on how it looks. There has to be some financial information that is along with that, if possible.
Understood. We'll pull that together.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
Will it, would it work for the board if we?
Brandon, hold on a second, wait.
No, I was just gonna say, in my mind, you have to be careful of using all this wood stuff because the oils and chemicals in people's bodies, that'll deteriorate that wood in pretty good fast fashion. If you've ever even been to a grocery store and go to the men's room, ladies' room, nobody uses the hardware. They push on the door and that door is ugly. Just from the chemicals and
But I think you were talking about not real wood doors, right?
it doesn't make any difference.
no, it would be a laminate clad on the doors.
Right, yeah, I think Jim was talking about the wood on the handles.
That too.
Understood. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at it, and I just to temper it a little bit, there were other options we looked at that were a higher price point, as I think you had mentioned, Mr. Chair. And so we picked what we felt was a mid, kind of on the higher scale of the mid, and these are the options we came up with. But we'll coordinate with McGough, do a price comparison and different scenarios, and then we can send that to Sean to distribute to the board. Will that work?
Yeah, that would be very helpful. And like I said, as we go forward on this, Ms. Rangan has a good point, that we know McGough has a cost estimate, and if you're asking us to make decisions that deviate from that, that's probably the first data point that we need. That this is in your budget at $80. We're proposing options of $400.
Yeah, and that's, sorry for the misunderstanding. It is not in the budget, McGough's budget at $80. We're saying the baseline model that you currently have at the airport is $80.
Right, we're so out, yeah, Brendan, and I understand, but what you've left out a major portion of the decision is, do you want this handle for $320 more than what you're currently working with?
Times the number of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll pull together that financial information. What we have in the budget, we'll see if McGough has in their budget and how this compares, and we'll pull that together, and we can let you know if it's within the budget or and then what an option would be for even cost savings. Yeah.
I'm not ready to go to a rope with a knob in it.
And then also say, like, if you are showing us door handles, the next round, it would be helpful if it was on the door so we could tell what the finished product's going to look like and what the walls are and the flooring is adjacent to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the wood handle would not look good on a wood door, for instance. So, that's just my opinion.
Oh.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if McGough's baseline was $500 a door, maybe there's a great deduct coming too, based on our choices.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I saw some on sale at Menards.
Yeah. Thank you for understanding.
You want to finish up? I know.
Yeah, we got a lot more to go.
We got a lot more to get
Assuming.
through here.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, next slide, the men's restroom images. We worked with the Fargo Air Show and we obtained permission to use archived photos from previous air shows. The following images were chosen for the men's restroom. In the first image, you'll see 4 jets flying in different directions to create a star pattern. The second image we chose is 2 fighter jets in a crossover formation. And the third image is a biplane creating a loop of smoke. If we could go to the next image, which is restroom number 107 on the lower level. In this image, in this room, we are incorporating the 4 planes in the star formation. Also in this image, you can see some of the finishes for the restroom, the tile, and then the wood grain tiles above the urinals and the toilet. The ceiling hung toilet partitions are also shown, and the sink, as well as the shelf and mirrors.
And those doors open out
So
and
the
the
next slide.
depth is 6 feet?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If we could go to the next image, men's restroom on the second level in area A, which is in the existing terminal. We chose the jets in a crossover formation. Also in this image, you can see what's impactful with these images is you do get the reflection in the mirrors. So the room also becomes a part of the image as well. And then if we go to the next slide, this is the men's restroom in area D, which is part of the expansion. And here we're showing the biplane.
Will there be some hooks
Again, with all the finishes.
as well?
I'm sorry?
Will there be some hooks, Gina?
Oh, yeah.
Hooks.
There's hooks,
For instance, if
inside.
like if the guy is
Yeah.
if
Hang
wants
up
to
his
hang
coat.
up his backpacker's
Right.
coat, just
Correct.
okay.
There are hooks inside each one of the stalls.
And you're talking about outside as well, Paula?
Right, like if somebody just had a backpack and they wanted to, get situated and not put their backpack on the floor.
They constantly break because the backpacks are too heavy.
So we need extra strong hardware.
Yeah, yeah, we've taken that into consideration.
Awesome, thank you.
You know,
Uh-huh.
instead of, and not instead of, but you might wanna include, your murals there with that biplane and the crossovers and all that stuff. Use aircraft pictures that replicate our own North Dakota Air National Guard that's right here located on the airport, rather than the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds who might be here once every 3 to 4 years, and use something more local.
Okay, all right.
I mean, we used to fly F4s around here, which are the big flying Mr. Ugly, but it's still the best airplane in the air.
Which one is that?
The F4.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is a good plane. So I'll get in contact with the National Guard and see if they have some images that we can use. That's great feedback.
Gina, is that a little ledge above the urinal before the wood slats?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome,
And
thank you.
it continues all the way through the toilet compartments as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna
We
pee
show
on
the
the floor,
next
that
image, there's a typo, it should be women's restroom images, sorry about that. The images for the women's restroom were, the inspiration is nature and different, seasons, depicted in these images. In image 1 is a top view of reed grass against dark blue water. Image 2 shows a close-up of the wheat stalk covered in snow, and image 3 is the grassland during sundown. If we could jump to the next slide, this is the women's restroom on the first floor, and this is the top view of the reed grass next to the dark blue body of water. My next slide is in area A, the existing terminal is the wheat stalk covered in snow. And these images were for the rendering purposes. The renderer stretched the images out. In reality, once we do, they'll be cropped to the correct size. And then the following image is the grassland during sundown. What's your impression on these images for the women's restroom?
I like the airplanes better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe if you were in Dickinson, that would be good.
Mr. Chair, One question, I noticed there's no paper towel dispensers adjacent to the sinks, which I find doesn't make sense.
Actually the faucets or at the sinks also have a blower that is a hand dryer.
That's to spray the water all over.
Yeah, I would be concerned that if you're dressed up going somewhere, you'd get a little backsplash and not be appropriate.
Anywhere we can try out that hardware? Chicago? Okay.
Was that Minneapolis? I just ran into that at one of the airports. Yeah, these are the integral faucets that have the faucet or the water, the soap, and the hand dryer all in one. So it's
Is there a brand so we could like watch a YouTube video?
Never seen it in Minneapolis.
I think I took a video of it. I can I'll find that and share that with you.
Okay.
I've had the opportunity to use, and it's a fine balance between the blower not blowing hard enough so it splashes all over you. Needs to be calibrated pretty carefully.
It's very European. It's
Yes.
all over Europe.
Yeah.
But there is space for towel dispensers between the glass or the mirroring, so I'm just thinking, why aren't we using the space efficiently?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll coordinate that with the airport. Whether they may have a contract with their paper suppliers.
But I do love how the paper's right over the wastebasket.
Yeah.
It looks
Walking over
it
to
looks really nice.
Drip on the floor.
I like the lighting, the wood slats, the shelves. Thank you.
Okay.
And there is a dispenser, as you can see in the foreground, we do have in each restroom the paper towel dispensers, but we can look into adding additional ones too.
Yeah.
The next slide. So the next slide is the concessions area, the concessions in Area C, the main concession area. In this concession, we're offering 3 different food options. There'll be Cinnabon and Schlotsky, which will operate the front portion of the space, where the main bar is housed in the back. Flooring and ceiling treatments will help differentiate the 2 different areas. And at the perimeter on each side of the space, there'll be a low wall with planters to separate the space from the adjacent departure lounges.
So is that our main area, our main concessions?
It is. It is the main concession.
So this is in the place that's currently where the TSA is?
Yes, correct.
That's terrible looking.
How many will be seated? How much seating? For how many people?
I don't have a final seat count for both the bar and the front, but we do have more seating than is existing there. There'll be a booth along the east wall.
Gina, I'm sorry to interrupt here. I think what we'll do as this develops, because right now the concessions is as far as design is a couple steps behind the rest of the terminal, and that's due to the time frame that it takes for Skydyne to onboard potential franchises, which they're working on right now. So that's why you don't see equipment, you don't see signage, because they're still negotiating like who is going to occupy these spaces. But as that develops, I think what would be most beneficial is we could do a kind of a fly-through, so you can really see this in animation or live, coming through here and then going back to the bar.
For instance, this
So
rendering.
This opens up.
This rendering doesn't even, like we have a barrel ceiling right now. Like this doesn't really represent even the area that the concessions would be in.
And Well, what we did is, because there's so much mechanical, needed to go up in that ceiling, we chose to, go with a gyp board ceiling in this thing.
And flatten it out?
It does, pardon me?
And flatten out the ceiling?
Yes, yes.
Are you working with the concessionaires at all with, because to me, that's about the most ugly thing I've seen yet for a concessionaire.
We are working with the concessionaires and also a kitchen designer out of Minneapolis. And as Brandon mentioned, this is really in the infancy stages of design because of getting the concessionaire on board as well as the kitchen designer.
I'd love to see kind of like a Cheers bar island in the middle with seating or.
Okay, yeah,
And will
this is not the bar, this is the grab and go, and then, and the bar is actually in the back. So I think we need to we need to provide some more detail once the concessionaires are on board, and we have further developments on that. It would probably be more helpful to see this more populated.
And also, I sure hope that we are gonna have more than just sub sandwiches, like the ability to get a burger or something.
Yeah, the restaurant will be in the back, and that would be like a full service restaurant, and that's what Skydine is pursuing right now. And the grab and go, right now, and he doesn't have any commitments, but there's, I believe he's speaking with Cinnabon and Schlotsky's for the grab and go.
So that's what we're looking at right now is your grab and go?
That's right, the full restaurant is behind it, the full
Yeah.
bar is behind it.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
There's
We're
a
just
lot more to
confused
this
because we
than
don't have
had.
the floor plans yet. Okay.
We've been working on this for.
It is, yeah, it probably would have been beneficial that we had maybe the floor plan, and then we could kind of show where these areas are at. Noted for next time.
And I think occupancy would be good to know too.
Like, yeah, like, okay.
And as we develop, of course, that's gonna be a big part of it is seat count and occupancy. Okay, if we could go to the next slide. This is the concession area at the meter greeter space, so where I usually come up the escalators. Here again, there will be a transition to wood flooring from the main concourse to kind of differentiate the space. On the back wall, we're working with artwork to create either art or signage, a mural on that wall. We've been in contact with them and they're anxious to do a call to artists, and that will happen in about 6 to 8 months from now. Once we get the terminal underway, we'll reach out to the different artists for installation in that space. And if we could go to the next slide, this is adjacent to the composure area as you come out of TSA and enter into the air side. And this is a coffee bar that's convenient to travelers. It's centrally located in the terminal. And in the foreground, you can see an example of Raleigh signage that he discussed earlier today. If we could go to the next slide. This is the interactive wall. These are the images that are showcased in the interactive wall. The images were chosen from various sources in the local area. And the way the interactive wall will be installed, there'll be a photo on one side, and to discover the photo story, you will turn the little picture box, and on the back side will be a description of the image. And if we go to the next slide, it shows the interactive wall in rendering. It's located between gate A and is at the entrance of the play area.
That's an analog?
There are,
Couldn't we do that
Pardon me?
electronically? I mean, this is the old,
uh,
turn the square.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
during the square, yes.
And the ones up top, how do you reach them?
You don't, the ones up top, it would be very difficult to reach. So there are, the ones without the images will be like a reflective type of material and also a textured material to fill in the
Chair?
I have a
spaces.
question here.
Mr. Chair, who's gonna clean this, because that's you're touching it, it's turning, that's, the cleaning cost alone of that might be prohibitive as opposed to a digital environment.
I think we've got an awful lot of digital. I like it.
I don't know. I have a vision of an old school application.
This was in response to, we received community feedback and from Artworks of, wanting to do a timeline of sorts or something local on some of the history. And Artworks came back with they suggested we stay away from the traditional timeline that was old or exhausted and to come up with something different. And so this was the culmination of that.
Again, Mr. Chair, Sean, how is this maintained?
Not only is it a timeline, but it also has images of the local area, and it's sculptural in nature. It's just not a flat digital screen. It has movement to it, which creates interest.
I like it.
Well, yeah, I don't, somehow we're gonna have to come up with a process to try and figure out these things, going forward.
Are they just pictures hanging on the wall? So, like he said, who's gonna clean it?
And maintain it, some breaks.
I'm not getting any answers. Who's gonna clean this thing?
We would have to talk to the maintenance at the airport and have that discussion.
Gina, is it glass or is it plexiglass or?
It is, it's flat. It
Okay.
is, it's a resin, is what it is.
You're concerned with more the people touching it, not the dust, but like people touching it, fingerprints, dirty, over time kind of thing.
Right.
Who would be cleaning it?
Is there a, I don't know, is there a glass?
With a lot of the play areas too. I mean, things that you don't have right now, they're points of interest for the for the passengers, but there will be an increased amount of maintenance and cleaning. So yeah, it's a decision the airport's going to have to make if the trade-off is worth it.
Is there a glass option that's maybe a little bit more fingerprint proof?
There is, what we've incorporated is a resin option, which will have with the fingerprint.
Yeah. Brandon, I'm in the interest of time here, we've been going for a while. Somehow we're gonna have to come up with a better way than this type of discussion as we make decisions moving forward. I'm sure you've had this experience previously, but I believe what you're gonna find is a very engaged board through this process. And this is not an efficient way to go through this at a board meeting and try and make decisions on this. Have you got some suggestions of a better way to do this? Because this will take us forever.
Yeah, I know before we had a dedicated board meeting for some of the, as we were going through finishes. We can certainly do that. We are trying to feel out through this process of how engaged you want to be, and how, if you are interested in these things or not, and that's been kind of the purpose of these presentations, is to if we're not getting much feedback, we know that we're doing things right. If we're getting a lot of feedback, we know that we need to course correct.
Yeah, I think you're already witnessing, you're gonna have a very engaged board through this process. And so I think rather than try and do this as an agenda item at a board meeting, we should specifically set up times and that we can go through these things, and you can give us more detail here, because it's really difficult to look at a picture like this and decide what we're dealing with. I mean, and I know a lot of this has to be done conceptually, but I'm just trying to find a way that this isn't gonna work as we go forward.
Okay.
I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but this is not an efficient way to approach it at this point.
Should we try to schedule like an hour, like dedicate an hour to go through this?
Yeah, I mean, you're well into 40 minutes right now.
Yeah.
So either we have to get much more efficient in these presentations, or we're gonna have to find a different way to do this.
Okay.
This is critical. I don't wanna minimize the effort and everything here, but
yeah.
And again, and this is just me, I constantly go back and say, wait a second, are we making financial decisions as well as design decisions? And I'll have to tell you, Brandon, the first time when you came and said, oh, by the way, we need an extra 12 million, that was sticker shock. So as we're doing this, I always want to go back. Are we talking deviation from where we, plan to be? And like I said, that's never been sort of clear in your presentations. And maybe it's not that everything's, but if that's an ad, that's an important piece of information for the board to have.
That is a great point. What we are showing now, and yes, we did have a big step from SDs to DDs, and I will say there was a lot of scope, and that was kind of what we were explaining when that budget issue did come up. DDs, we have a clear direction and scope, and so what we're showing you now, these are all items that we do have in the budget. The hardware is something I want to confirm. I feel like we're middle to high, which I would expect McGuff not just budgeting, knowing the general idea and finish of the space, that they wouldn't do just a baseline hardware. So I want to verify that. But everything else here, we've been aligning with the budget. So we'll certainly verify that. But what we'll do moving forward here, we'll try to schedule a separate work group session, and that way, the intent is we certainly don't want to waste your time going through things that you may not be interested in, but others might be very interested in it. So if we go in, have a work group session with what we're going to be covering, knowing it's going to be an interactive discussion as we present things, maybe that will work better for you all.
No, I think that's a great idea, and just back to your picture board there, if we don't do that, is there a need for some wall there or what? So, these are all things that, I don't know if it's well in the board meeting, so. And if we could schedule those meetings, available for Zoom also. And, get as much of the information to us in advance so people can look through it and, you know, kind of think about, then have discussions about it.
Mr. Chair, also if we're going to do that, if there's consideration for deviation from what's been proposed, a cost, an ABC cost, either up, down, or whatever at that time would help us make decisions.
Sure. Does that give you some direction, Brandon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, you wanna just go through here real quick and finish up?
I think what we'll do here then for the rest of it is just show you the pictures. We don't need initial reactions. We'll bring these up again at our work group session. But this will give you a snapshot and give you some time to think about it. These are also in your handouts. So we'll just run through these and then plan to talk about them in our next work group session that we'll schedule.
Great, I appreciate it. Appreciate your effort on this so far.
Yeah, you bet. Gina, you want to go through the play area?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a work group session would be fantastic. I would love to get feedback as we design. So I look forward to those sessions. This is the play area. Just an overall rendering. We're not going to get in the weeds about it. It's just conceptually what the play area is going to look like. Next slide, we've incorporated two art display cases in the terminal. One is located, you can see highlighted in yellow, right as you come to the exit lanes, and then one is recessed in the wall at the restrooms. This was through our discussions with Artworks and with the different listening groups that they did want some sort of display cases in the terminal. And if we go to the next slide, it shows the four-sided display case that is located near the exit lanes. Artworks is very interested in curating the items that will be going into the display case and are willing to change them out quarterly. So that's it for interiors.
That was it. Yeah. Well, sorry, I know it's a lot of information, but thank you guys for going through it and the initial feedback. We'll have the work group sessions.
Well, we'll find a way to make this work. Thank you.
And I look forward to the baggage claim area and rental car area as well.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Item number 8 is our proposed marketing communication plans for Flint. You guys have 3.5 hours, so go ahead.
Well, the good news is we summarized it, and the meat of it is in the printout everyone has here. And what we'll need approval on is just the basic idea of the strategy, and then we'll kind of work together as a group to hash out the details, go through budgets, the detailed media plan, social media plan, everything. You can do the strategy presentation. That one.
Sure.
Were you guys a part of the collaboration with Jet Center?
So just an overview of the current state, we have conducted the surveys and input sessions. The plan that we are proposing is for 2024, so next steps, I'll go over on the next slide too, but that's when we'll get into the detailed plans and tactics. The budgets are proposed by both dollar amount and percentage of spend. If budgets change, we can alter the plans to fit the approved budget amount, so don't get any sticker shock, we can adjust as needed. And then this planning is also intended to be fluid. As the year progresses, progresses, priorities can change, different performances on media might change, so we will shift that. And then just input from board, community partners, and survey results might be indicators to revisit. And a note that any signage and clear channel activity is not part of the scope. We're happy to come with that, but that's not in what we're reviewing today. So if the strategy is approved, what we'll do next, we'll just do a one-sheeter. We'll move into a brand refresh, work on a message matrix by personas, go into detailed social media plans, paid media plans, get a budget approval after those are developed, then go into campaign concept development, and then just doing an overall review of 2023 performance and adjusting those KPIs. So the overview, the audiences, moving forward, we're gonna have 4 distinct audiences. One will be passengers, both business and leisure, the airlines, existing and potential, influencers, and those ones we're really mainly focusing on local, so local media, local businesses, and any community engagement groups. And then we'll also focus on airport partners, so any amenities or businesses within the airport, Chamber of Commerce, Greater Fargo Moorhead, Economic Development, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then any city officials. Our goals and objectives, the first one is just mainly to increase passengers, and this will be a main part of our campaign. That'll be most of the percentage. Increase awareness of the terminal expansion, increase website traffic, increase newsletter recipients, and then always making sure to have a feel of the competitive watching comparison. And then as you can see in the pie chart, that's just an overview of how we'll kind of hash out what we'll focus on, with the main one being awareness. And then we'll have 3 distinct campaign themes. The main one is just going to be focused on the easy, uncomplicated travel. And this is one that was both in surveys and input session we've had, what people highlighted most about traveling through Hector. So those key messages will be fly Fargo, you have options, this is the easy choice, there's more destinations, more direct routes, and the affordability. And that'll be about 70% of what we were going to focus on. The next 2 are both 15%. One is just feel like a local, and it's all about just Fargo, our community, really getting different community advisors involved, and thanking everyone for flying Hector. And lastly is that business leisure travel, go more places, and this is where we'll really focus on the different direct flights, different airlines, and push those messages. And then this is just an overall snapshot. I won't go through everything, but just a general look at what the next 3 years could be. So 2024 is going to be our biggest planning session, just reviewing what we've done in the past and getting that detailed strategy together. Roughly 175,000 in agency services and about 200,000 in media. And then as we ramp up and get more into the terminal renovation, we'll probably increase the agency services in 2025, and then 2026 increase that media spend. This is pretty tiny, but this is outlined better in your guys' printout. But this is just the basic strategic initiatives that we have. We're going to have 3 different communications objectives. One is to increase awareness and the passenger count of the airport. Another is to educate travelers in the Fargo Moorhead area on the terminal expansion. And then the third is to build relationships with the community partners and airlines. And with all of those, we'll have different external campaigns, PR campaigns, social campaigns, and then hopefully with Paula's help on the community partners, getting a little round table together that she can help us lead. And then on the other, the last column, it's just a rough idea of what we would spend on these. Again, budgets are, we can go over those and approve those later. It's just a rough idea for you guys as we get these plans moving forward. And then anything additional, PR services for the terminal construction, any special events, any customer and passenger surveys, and then just our crisis comm approach plan, which Tara is working on with the city and Madison as well. And that, I think we're working on that addendum still, if you want to update where we are right now, crisis.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the crisis plan and talking about when a crisis occurs. We do have, with the airport authority and the fire department, we have the emergency plan that we follow. And then we are working on an addendum to add more of a communications plan into that plan. So still kind of compiling that and highlighting more of what those communication tactics are, kind of who does those things, how we do them, what that messaging looks like, and kind of just putting that all out there so we have a better idea. Before an emergency happens, people will kind of know what to expect, what will follow, and then in the case of an emergency, we have that to kind of go by and know this is the next step, here's who we need to involve, those kinds of things, that would be an addendum added to the emergency plan if we're able to do that.
So yeah, so really what we just need approval on is if you guys wanna move forward with just this proposed strategy approach. And then we can get into the nitty-gritties and putting together the exact plans and budgets, and then those would be for approval probably beginning of the year.
So then this is a 3-year contract?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
contract. This is just our proposal for what we would do for 3 years. We don't necessarily ever enter into a real contract.
We'd have an annual.
Yeah.
Annual.
But just to give you an idea of what 3 years would look like if you need to budget for that with the true renovation and everything.
Okay.
Motion to accept.
Motion is
Second.
good discussion. I just have some questions, very quickly. Whose job is it to promote us to the airlines to consider additional flights of cargo?
For service development,
But is there a piece of this that can tie to this?
pieces of this in our presentations, I gave you a whole bunch of the presentations that we've done in the past, so with Mike Lum, with Blair, prior to that, Mark Sixel, and Lum and his team, we pulled pieces from our marketing, from the chamber, from the EDC, Department of Labor stats that built the case for the and the specific stories from businesses that are looking for, like as we build our Charlotte service profile for American Airlines, businesses, truck racers, and help us put together that plan.
So, and again, as we look to increase passengers, I think.
Well, they'll help drive passengers,
Right,
but
right.
you know, the airlines will look at the plan in terms of what are you doing to try and entice passengers to come to the airport. They'll see what the budget is, and then commingle that with what they plan to spend in the market in terms of marketing, whether it's social media or other hard costs.
The other item, and it just occurred to me as we were having our presentation, we missed a branding opportunity. We have the old terminal building. That really doesn't inspire a lot of imagination. Our client here today wanted to be in the old terminal building. Maybe we could come up with something to promote that a little bit more.
Most refer to it as the East Terminal Building, some that have been here for a while, and Chase is new, so I don't know where you got the.
Well, and I'm not good at naming it because over at NDSU, we name buildings Research 1 and Research 2.
It had been referred to as the Hector Airport Business Park.
Yeah.
The Hectors didn't like that, so we removed that, so.
No, I'm just saying that it's something, I don't want to get into a big discussion of it. It's an old terminal building,
So when you say umbrella, like Flint will be assisting us with not only the crisis management plan, but also like, you said like rebranding or communicating with the public throughout the construction process, exploring new ways to reach our customers, for instance, that don't use social media. And then community engagement. And so even input on signage or and you guys are also putting together the RFP for the electronic sign. Did we, and then, you don't have to answer that, but like also, I'd love to hear, like, how much it costs to wrap a bus.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've done a few bus wraps, so.
Just curious. One more way to get to people that don't use social media. I don't know, like another way.
Okay.
I had in my mind like wrapping paper for this.
Any other discussion? Alright,
I think there's something fun we can do with the shape of a bus. I don't know, just.
put wings on it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thanks for all the work you're doing.
Do we still have PFM on,
Ryan is on there, Danny Nelson, both on.
Oh, one more
Yeah.
question. So
Yeah, we're here. Good morning, everyone.
does Air Services,
Sorry.
does that,
hang on one second.
do companies do videos for Air Services to promote the community?
Some, I mean, well, they have to put together videos of the community. Some airlines like it, some just want hard copies, so that's been an option for years. And for a substantial fee, they can put together a video to present to them.
Okay.
We're talking a lot of money that really, at the end of the day, the network planners, I don't have time to watch it, then just give me a hard copy of what you want.
Okay, so
So you can waste a lot of money, but then I think that's.
I know, I know that there's, like when I was in Sioux Falls, they fly nonstop to Austin, Los Angeles, Charlotte, Fort Lauderdale, and Austin. Like that's a lot more nonstop destinations.
What's our MSA? About the same as.
I think metro area alone, not including like the regional population, but metro area alone, I think they're about 20,000.
Some percent would it's a significantly larger customer base.
Okay.
Well,
And if it made money, Allegiant would be here doing it.
we'll just end it, so. Okay. Now, PFM, if you can take us through this very quickly.
Scott is here from First.
Yeah, we will be very brief, and I want to be mindful of the other agenda. And I wasn't actually sure if I was going to be able to join this morning, but I was able to jump on here. So I'm going to kick it over to Danny. I don't know if you have some of the presentation materials that we sent over in the room. If not, we can pull them up and share our screen here as well. But just we'll walk through very, very briefly, just talk about high-level interest rate environment, how the last year has looked, and answer any questions if there are any. Danny, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Hopefully everybody can hear me, and I'll just, as Brian said, we'll be very brief. Just for everyone's edification, we did start investing investment securities for the airport authority beginning at the end of calendar year 2022. So just keep that in mind. And at that time, interest rates were still on the rise. Since then, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates, and overnight interest rates are in the range of 5.25% to 5.5%. However, since then and going forward, the market and the Fed is projecting that interest rates will most likely be cut sometime in 2024 into 2025. It's still uncertain in terms of the timing and how many rate cuts that we will see going forward. But in the packet that we sent you on page 2, you can see the implied federal funds rate and the fact that rates are expected to be cut sometime in 2024. Nevertheless, short-term interest rates still remain high. You can see that on the next page, on page 3 of your packet, in terms of the money market yield curve. There we do show, thank you. On page 3, we do show indicative average CD and CP rates. We know that the authority has been in discussion with regards to CD options with First International Bank and Trust, and so we just wanted to provide you with some options that we're seeing. I would say that the yields that you're seeing here are about a week old. They are gross yields and do not include any cost of fees, and these yields do vary day to day, vary by bank, vary by issuer as well. So I would also state that any yield that you see above 5% in the year-end space is a very competitive yield. So just take that into consideration when looking at CD options going forward. The other thing I would state is that with the fact that the Fed is looking to possibly cut rates in 2024, you may want to take advantage of these higher rates now before rates drop even further. And you can see how much rates have dropped on the next page if you look at the entire yield curve. Short-term rates are still relatively high compared to longer-term rates, but on page 4, you can see that the yield curve is inverted right now. And so 2-year and 5-year rates are actually yielding less than 3-month and 6-month rates. And rates, as you can see, have come back down from the peaks that we saw earlier this year. So we just wanted to give you that brief update in terms of where interest rates are and what we're seeing in the market. With regards to the Airport Authority's portfolio, as I mentioned, we did start making investments at the end of calendar year 2022, and we did utilize investments that are permitted by the North Dakota Century Code. On the next page, on page 5, we do list out what are those permitted investments. When we initially made investments, we specifically focused on treasuries, agencies, and commercial paper. Commercial paper, you can invest out to 250 days. Since we made those initial investments, there have been maturities in your portfolio, and we have reinvested those maturities mainly in treasuries and commercial paper. Some of the agencies have matured, but the yield spread between treasuries and agencies has tightened to the fact that we do believe that treasuries offer a little bit more value than agencies. So with some of the recent maturities we have seen, like I said before, we have reinvested those in treasuries and commercial paper. And you can see on the next page what your holdings look like as of the end of November. This is just a table of your investment holdings as of the end of November. We do provide the authority with monthly statements, which have a little bit more detailed information than what you're seeing here. But for the purposes of this presentation, we just want to give you a quick snapshot of what your portfolio looks like. And then on the next page, we do give a summary and a little bit more in terms of portfolio statistics. As you can see here, as of the end of November, we had a little over $21 million invested. The average duration of your portfolio was 0.71 years, which is around 260 days. You can see the yield at cost at 4.68%. That's the average yield of the investments when we made purchases in your portfolio. And then you can see the yield at market at 5.29% represents the yield, the average yield of all the investments in your portfolio as of a point in time in this case, as of November 30th, 2023. As you can see, the portfolio is diversified by treasuries, treasury notes, treasury bills, and commercial paper. And in terms of the credit quality, all of the investments are rated in the top 2 rated categories by S&P Ratings Agency. And lastly, in terms of the duration distribution, as you can see here, your portfolio is laddered out in securities maturing up to 2 years. I would say, as you can see, there is a little bit of a skew in the under 6-month area. There are a couple reasons for that. One, that's really to provide for liquidity for any cash needs that you have for upcoming projects over the next 6 months or so. The other reason why the duration is skewed towards the shorter end, as I mentioned before, we do have a inverted yield curve, and we want to take advantage of the short-term interest rate environment that we're seeing right now. And then lastly, your portfolio since inception has garnered over $950,000 in interest earnings. And you can see it here on the last page that we have here, page 8. And we have those interest earnings broken out by quarter since we started managing your fund. So in the interest of time, I'll stop there and see if you have any questions with regards to the interest rate environment, the market, your portfolio, or investment options going forward.
Discussion, questions? The one thing with the PFM account, what we did a year ago is we put, I believe, 20 million under management with PFM. We have not changed that amount or added to that amount. So that's one thing that we said we'd take a look at. We're in a unique situation here, and I know the second part of this is we have some CD proposals from First International Bank.
Can this decision be postponed until like the first week of the year? So like if we had a meeting on, it's the beginning of January.
Yep.
And then we had Ide Bailey along with other potential outsourcing of financial services, like that we could.
We certainly could delay it at
They're
that
separate
time.
decisions.
Yeah, there's
One
two.
has nothing to do with the other. So what I would recommend is that you would ladder the CDs that Scott proposed at their last meeting to 4 week, 13 and 26 weeks. 9 or 10 million of what we have based on the CARES amounts that we received. Put that to work at 5.25% fees. That's what you should do.
Well, like I said, that's, Sean, I appreciate the advice on it. Again, as we progress with these projects, these are treasury functions that would typically be a CFO that's gonna have to lay out a very specific timeline with cash draws and contractors, so that we have funds. And again, PFM offers services too, it's where we want to go with it, so I would just leave it at this point as a board decision. We do not have to take action, we would continue in a lower interest environment, which is what would typically be paid on our demand deposits.
Mr. Chair, I think with the allocation of that 9 million, we stay less than the 30 weeks, so 26 weeks, the 13 and 4 weeks, and do that, take that 9 million and ladder it evenly, a third each, and put it to work. That doesn't change what happens moving forward. And between, as PFM stated, and I think what First International is proposing, we do have the liquidity based on the duration of the instruments at PFM and First International. So that'd be my proposal.
Well, and the only thing I want to caution is this is not a typical board function to be acting in the role of treasury management. We want to be doing this.
I'm comfortable with my motion.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion is that you wanna invest 9 million,
The money, my motion is the money currently at First International, we move 9 million in 3 tranches, one to the 4-week, one to the 13-week, and one to the 26-week at the stated
total
rate.
amount that we have at First International is,
If we moved it in just to all of it to the 4-week, then if we would retain a financial officer in January, then they could come in and have all the funds to figure out.
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess the question is the possibility of interest rate declines. We're locking this in for approximately 6 months, 3 months and 1 month. And that doesn't impede on what a CFO would do. It would be just the operating function of what has already been done, should they choose to make changes.
we're trying to speculate on what the CFO function would provide to us, would there be other investment options they would recommend to try and, everybody's gonna try and lock in a higher interest rates, with inverted yield curves, which is where we simply, the longer the term, the lower the interest rate, which is usually the opposite. So, your suggestion would be to just do it for a 4-week period. It would allow us to do that. Rick's suggestion is 4, 9, and 13, I believe.
No, 4, 13, and 26.
4, 13, and 26, 26 weeks, half a year. So, any other discussion? So, if you wanted to do the 4 weeks, we would have to defeat the motion and then have another motion to do the 4 weeks.
Okay.
And this is just with 9 million of those dollars.
Yeah, of the total,
Approximately 35.
yeah, this is a huge. So again, I would prefer to wait and let, if we're gonna hire this function, have that ability or the shorter term. And even the allocation that we have 20 million in PFM, 35 million in demand deposits, those are all functions that we need to do at this point. So I would speak against this motion, but if it carries, so.
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess then the question is, should PFM be shortening its duration on what it has based on that statement?
They've got a duration of under a year, 0.71.
Should they be shortening it?
Again, that's a CFO treasury function, to my view in this. You've got to decide where your transactional accounts are going to be, what your transactional amounts are going to be, and then look to maximize the return and based on what your cash flow needs are. But I would just speak against the commitment out of 6 months. I think we have the ability of, all I've suggested to do a 4-week that ties into a reasonable interest rate.
I guess Mr. Chair, my concern is interest rates declining and we have the opportunity to lock in 5.25 with no fees, no fee exposure, which is only, I think, 10 or 12 basis points total, but still, we would lock that in for 4 weeks, 13 weeks, and 26 with $9 million. That's.
Yeah, it's market, it's speculation. If interest rates happen to pop up, then we're on the other side of that equation.
With the 20 million at PFM as well, correct?
Absolutely. No, I mean, either way it goes, to make the argument. All right, call the roll.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No. Motion fails for lack of a majority. Is there any other?
I'd make a motion to do 4 weeks, and then hopefully if we retain a CFO or a financial person in a pretty rapid manner at the beginning of January. Now they've got more tools in their toolbox to work with.
Is there a second to the motion? All right, I will yield the chair to the vice chair, Mr. Captain, to second the motion.
Any discussion? Questions? If not, call the roll, please.
Hingham.
No.
Yes.
Cosgrove.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Motion again fails for lack of majority. We will do that as it is for now.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Scott a question?
Yeah.
Scott, current money market rate?
Your current money market rate is 5%,
Okay.
which is on all your forms.
Yep. So we would be gaining 0.25% on 9 million by the motion.
We've had a motion and a vote.
No, I'm just, you asked me if I could ask him questions.
You asked to ask a question. Let's go through and if you want to put it back on the agenda for the next meeting, the motion.
He's still the chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
To answer your question, yes, you'd be on that 9 million that you're proposing, you'd gain 0.25% on that 9 million from what you're earning today.
I have a question. So because we can't make a decision right now, is this money gonna sit not earning any?
No, it'll earn your 5%.
It will. Okay.
Okay.
For 4 weeks.
It'll earn us 5%
potentially.
rather than the 5.25.
For either.
Yeah, either option. The 4 week or the latter.
Return the chair.
Thank you. All right. Airport liability policy.
Education from North Star, the annual renewal of the policy, the $88,043.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item number 11 is changes to the handbook. I think it's changes to our policy to keep us in sync with the city of Fargo. I would just ask if we had our human resource consultant take a look at this, that we are lined up. Sometimes we just, have they gone through and said, this aligns us with both the city and the county?
Aligns with the city, I don't necessarily know.
That-
It's aligned with the city.
I gotta go to a meeting after this anyway, so I'll check. I don't think it lines up with the county, but that,
Yeah, I just think we should know that it's part of this.
I can check with Tracy and then get back to you, Sean.
I know, Joan, your concern was that we enact this because the New Year's payroll starts December 25th, but we can certainly make the change retroactive, so we just have, if we don't have something they don't have, or they have something we don't.
Well, there's a lot of things that the county has that the city doesn't,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Right.
I don't think aligning with the county has anything to do with it. I mean,
I
you
don't
sat in the
either.
room- She sat in the room during mediation, the goal was to keep us aligned with the city.
Concur
County
Yeah.
has
with the
nothing-
city.
not even
County
a
doesn't really have anything to do with it.
Yeah, so this keeps us in line with the city, Pro has confirmed that, so that's.
Just like the
Yeah,
mill levy, the county's mill levy doesn't align with the cities at all either.
Resources, we don't have that for the record here, I just want to see what it is. I'm not arguing.
Presentation, they're just gonna show you this piece of paper, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, one of the big things about what came out of mediation was that we agreed paralleling with the city so we weren't really cannibalizing each other and or not gaining our benefit. So I think mirroring them is important and as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
can have the recommendation from Pro Resources at the next meeting and make the needed changes.
Well, isn't this, can we use this as the recommendation? I mean,
It's gonna be the same, she's gonna.
Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that.
So the city made a change and we're trying to follow that change.
Exactly.
That's what we've done all the time. Proposed recommendation would be this is what the recommendation would be.
Concurrency, I think, is concurrent.
Like the city, and their pay scale had 10 steps. The county had 19 steps. We finally got smart and changed that down to, I think it's 12. We didn't even come down to what the city was yet. But,
well, you know, I these are all employee retention and crucial, and I'm not saying that we're gonna delay this if it's effective with the calendar year 2024, we can certainly deal with that. I just wanna make certain that we're aligned across the board. The longevity pay is a crucial factor, because what we have to understand, and the city has to understand, with longevity pay is that the only other side to that is that, you know, when people top out, we have long-serving employees, which we want, but then we have to figure out, you know, once you get to the top of those lanes, what do you do?
And the city's still paying a pension, correct?
I am not certain.
No, they're all in PERS. Well,
Okay.
there's still a pension plan for those who chose to stay in it, but eventually that will go away. All the new hires since 2008 have been in the PERS program.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you approve this today, it's subject to our written concurrence from Making Net Pro Resources, that will save you some time, they can have her email that out, but they've already looked at this.
Mr. Chair, I would be comfortable making that motion that we make concurrent with the city based on this information that Joan had submitted in our packet, and make it concurrent with the city so Pro Resources can act.
second.
We have a motion and a second to seek concurrence. If there's not concurrence, I guess then that would come back to this body for action
With these items listed, yes.
with those items. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Aye.
Hauser.
No. All right, number 12 is a subordination non-disagreement agreement with Miko Leasing and First International. We're agreeing that if our tenant does not honor their lease, that we inform the bank, and the bank has the ability to cure. What we give up in this agreement is any requirements that we may have of a tenant. If we want to have airplanes, they don't own an airplane, they would have the right, I believe, under this agreement to recover their loan by providing or selling to or doing something with another tenant. And I don't know that we could hold them specifically to.
I don't find that in the agreement, but I can sure double check.
I didn't see that it didn't seem to, if we have restricted covenants, and they have somebody that's willing to assume or take over, I think we have to allow it. Unless we've got specific language to say only subject to our approval.
I will review it again, but that's the way I read the agreement, that if there was gonna be tenant one or tenant two stepping for tenant one, that would have to come before us, as well as be amenable to the bank.
Yeah, I don't know that the way I looked at it, I'm not certain that we could disqualify that tenant. If they have a financially viable tenant, which is
Mr.
not a
Chair?
huge situation.
Question, the authority has the right to terminate the lease at the end of the lease regardless, does it not, and not renew. Yep.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's the protective measure that anybody taking it over would want to honor, keep up, and or extend.
Just, it's often the case when you have financing on lease property that, and I understand the financial institution's position saying, look, if we have to take this back and we have somebody willing to go in and assume that position, you can't prevent us.
You have to have an aeronautical purpose or aviation related.
Well,
specific airplanes.
yeah, that's not what I'm, that's just the question in this process.
So as I read section 8, that will revert back to the terms of the ground lease, which set that forth in terms of who can step in and who cannot. And then you have this layer of the bank in there as well.
Yeah.
So I will revisit it against the
Okay.
ground lease, but I feel like proper protection is there.
Our lease specifies what the occupancy can be, they can't change that.
Yeah, can't change that.
They can't bring a hair salon.
Well, that's what the agreement was supposed to, and it didn't appear to be.
But it does relate back the
It relates
tenants
back
covenants to the ground, terms of the ground
to
lease.
the ground lease, but again, in situations where you have finance properties property, that if they have a way to mitigate their losses in a situation, they're gonna push very hard. It's a little bit hard for them to say, hey, we've got a viable substitute here. So we don't have to cost. So that's my only concern with it. I would entertain a motion to approve, subject to confirmation that we can enforce all terms that we would to any tenant and not accept a tenant that does not meet those terms.
I will do so.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Finally, to airport.
Oh, Mr. Chair, one question
Yes.
about the prior. Is that something, Stacy, that should be more clear if you brought it up? Is it not clear based on the ground lease and or specific uses on the facility? Or is that what you're questioning, that they?
Given my internet training, legal matters, I prefer to Stacy on that.
I feel like
I have been in situations where we've gotten in arguments and you can understand the bank's position. The bank's lent money to a tenant. The tenant quits paying the lease. So when they do that, we have the right to just take over their property. So they come along and say, we have a new tenant, a sublet, and we say, oh yeah, but that tenant isn't what we want, we aren't gonna accept it. So I've been in those situations, it's, whether it's clear or not. Stacy can take a look at it and see it.
And maybe we need a little more language that, I feel like the ground lease is incorporated into the subordination agreement, but we can sure add language because the tenant, swapping tenant for tenant, I mean, the ground lease is pretty specific there that that's not allowable.
Yeah.
So if it needs to be
But they're asking for that, right, in this agreement, to be able to substitute the amended default. It's the way I read it.
at where the authority would have to agree.
Yeah. Yeah, we can just, let's just make sure the motion was enforce that. Or we'll accept the fact that for the remaining term of the lease, we may have.
Yeah, then our cause would be just don't renew.
We would not be forced to renew because of that. Construction security update, anybody, nothing, perfect. Okay, this 45-minute meeting is adjourned.
So point of clarity,